Tonight on Cronkite News, how state budget cuts could impact thousands of the most vulnerable members of the community here in Arizona.
Plus, President Trump's planned tariffs are on pause until next week. Coming up tonight, the potential impact they could have on people across our state.
And one of the greatest athletes to play in the Valley officially ends their illustrious career. We look back at all the accomplishments Diana Taurasi achieved during her 20-year career with the Phoenix Mercury. Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News. I'm Charlie Vicario.
And I'm Jacob Seaver. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The Arizona State Legislature is at a divide on whether funding that supports 60,000 people with disabilities should be cut.
According to the Arizona Republic, Republicans say the governor overspent state funds and cuts may be needed. Cress Melanie was at the Capitol today and heard from advocates for people with disabilities.
Dozens of people came to the Capitol to share their concerns and help people with disabilities learn to speak to their lawmakers. Big on today's agenda, potential funding cuts that could impact this community. Governor Katie Hobbs addressed disability advocates at the Capitol, saying she will stand with them to protect programs that impact them.
People with disabilities are already facing unprecedented attacks and uncertainty in the face of threatened Medicaid cuts. The legislative majority is adding fuel to the fire and putting human lives on the line.
With a possible 25% cut to the Arizona Development Disability Program, or DDD, families say this isn't just a budget issue. It's about real people losing support that can change their lives.
Make a cut to them is huge. They need nursing, they need feeding, they need care 24/7. This is essential life-saving care for them.
This care also includes funds for needed products like hearing aids and ventilator systems.
It would just be devastating for my whole family. I have 4 children who receive services through DDD. They cover all of the diagnoses that are eligible for DDD and receive so many benefits from the program.
People I spoke with say they hope Republicans and Democrats could find a middle ground, and they really want their voices heard in decisions that impact their lives. At the end of a recent committee hearing, Republicans said they wanted DDD funding to go through the budget process, which could mean no decisions until late spring. But if a decision on supplemental bill isn't passed soon, the funding could run out by the end of April.
The U.S. House passed a resolution with massive tax and spending cuts, and that could mean less money for several programs, including Medicaid. While this measure is not a finalized bill, it does propose $880 billion in cuts to health and energy programs over 10 years. Democratic U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders thinks those cuts will hurt those in need.
We're talking about $800 billion in cuts in Medicaid. And that means not only probably throwing millions of kids off health insurance, it means also making major cutbacks for nursing homes. 2 out of 3 people get supported by Medicaid who are in nursing homes. Community health centers provide primary health care to 32 million Americans. They're going to be decimated by these cuts.
According to the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, there are over 2 million Arizonans enrolled in the state's Medicaid program.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has put a price on citizenship for wealthy foreigners. $5 million is all the so-called gold card would cost. The president says the card would offer the same privileges of a green card and would grant an easier path to citizenship. The gold card would replace the EB-5 Immigrant Investor Visa program. Trump believes that this new pathway to citizenship would motivate wealthy foreigners to invest in the U.S. The president also said the sale of the gold card will begin in about 2 weeks.
Tariffs are another big part of the president's policy, and he's threatened to impose them on Arizona's closest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Cronkite News reporter Matthew DeWeese has been looking into the president's plan. He joins us now from our bureau in Washington, D.C. And Matt, where would we see the impact of these tariffs?
Yeah, so we're going to see a 10% tariff on Canadian energy, as well as a 25% blanket tariff on everything else. This includes fresh produce, steel, lumber, electronics, and so on. Consumers will end up paying the tariff, but originally the importers will pay it. Retaliatory tariffs will also be in effect, causing U.S. goods, U.S. exports to be less desirable.
And who will be hit the hardest in Arizona?
Yeah, so actually we import a ton of fresh produce through Nogales Landport. So a lot of jobs in that area will be affected. Also, Modelo beer, the best-selling beer in America, is currently stockpiling here in the U.S. to get ready for these tariffs. Also, the tourism industry could be affected. 1 out of 10 Arizona tourists come from Mexico, which could take a bite out of the state revenue budget.
And I know President Trump put the tariffs on hold, and when would they go into effect?
Yeah, so they're actually set to be unpaused on Tuesday. Now, they're currently in negotiations with both Canada and Mexico, but it's not really clear about what President Trump wants. Canada and Mexico are already working on stopping drug and illegal immigrants on coming through, so we'll just have to stay tuned to find out what's going to happen.
All right, thank you, Matthew Deweese from our Cronkite News Bureau in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much.
The president has also been talking with Ukraine about U.S. access to rare earth minerals. In exchange, the U.S. would reportedly help end Russia's invasion and provide Ukraine a reconstruction fund. However, Trump claims he is not making any promises.
Well, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, we're talking about Europe as their next door neighbor. But we're going to make sure everything goes well, and as you know, we'll be really partnering with Ukraine in terms of rare earth. We very much need rare earth. They have great rare earth.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is coming to Washington, D.C. on Friday to sign an agreement. Details regarding the deal have not yet been released.
Coming up next, home prices take a downturn across the nation.
But the news isn't so bad for home sales here in the Valley. Plus, the new exhibit at the Heard Museum from the perspective of a Native American artist.
Seems to have come to the Valley early. Join us after the break for a full weather report.
I grew up in a small border town, and water was really important to us. Without enough water, we can't farm, we can't eat, we can't live. And the way we're doing it right now, straight up doesn't have a future. I went to ASU because this is a place where you solve problems. With vertical farming, we can grow the same amount of food with 95% less water than traditional farming. The work I'm doing at ASU is changing the way I look at the world.
Innovation at the Walter Cronkite School is pushing the boundaries of traditional journalism.
Storytelling has evolved over the years. This is part of that evolution.
Students in the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Lab are using emerging technology to create scenes in augmented and virtual reality, coding playable games, and bringing the audience into the story.
They're only limited by their imagination and their willingness to learn.
Find out more at cronkite.asu.edu.
To get through, I think, the next month or two, but hopefully by summer.
Welcome back. A drop in egg prices is on the horizon, according to a member of President Trump's cabinet. U.S.
Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rowland says the USDA will tackle the bird flu by spending up to $1 billion. The USDA outlined an optimistic new strategy and says some of the money will come from recent DOGE cuts. The plan involves spending $500 million in biosecurity measures for farms, reducing regulations on egg producers so it can be easier to raise backyard chickens, and possibly importing more eggs from countries such as Turkey to temporarily reduce prices.
Meanwhile, the U.S. housing market saw a dip in new home sales this past January, according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. New single-family home sales were down 10.5% from December. However, here in the Valley, the number of homes sold in January increased by 4.1% compared to this time last year. Ever thought about what's behind the scenes of creating art? The Jerry Jacka exhibit captures the complex characteristics of creativity through Native American art. Cronkite News reporter Alana Goodman has more on the new exhibit at the Heard Museum, which gives the perspective of a Native American artist.
It's the small and intricate details Jerry Jacka captured like melting metal to create fine jewelry. That's what you will find at the Heard Museum. Jacka had a passion for photography at a young age and rode horseback for miles around the countryside to document mountains of the Southwest and other landscapes.
It's very much, you get to see these amazing photographs. And I think there's this element, this human element you can see with the artists, where it's not just you're staring at their work and maybe you're imagining who these artists were, what they were in the moment.
This exhibition transports you over 50 years back in time, taking the world through Jerry Jacka's lens. Jacka, who took award-winning pictures for 50 years, also immersed himself with the artist, creating a strong and lasting bond.
It just kind of conveys that relationship that Jerry had with artists. It was a friendship.
Jacka's close ties with artists allowed him to photograph their world through his lens. In Phoenix, Alana Goodman, Cronkite News.
In addition to Jacka's photos, you can also see pieces of work by the artist he profiles. The exhibit runs through mid-October at the Heard Museum.
Yesterday, the Valley saw its first 90-degree weather day a month earlier than usual. Will this heat trend continue? Isaiah Soto joins us from the Cronkite Weather Center with what we can expect.
Happy Wednesday. You'd think it's spring with the warm temperatures that we're experiencing here in the Valley, but don't worry, cooler temperatures are on the horizon. Let's take a close look at this evening's weather. Temperatures will be dropping down to the mid-70s with a slight breeze coming in from the northwest. Now, as we get into tomorrow morning, cool temperatures here in the state. In the southern region, 56 in Phoenix, 47 in Casa Grande, 48 in Ajo. Now in the high country, temperatures are around the 20s and 30s, 26 in Flagstaff, 36 in Page, 25 in the Grand Canyon. Now as we get into tomorrow afternoon, warm temperatures here in the state, 84 in Phoenix, 82 in Gila Bend, 82 in Yuma as well. Now in the high country, 60 in Page, 50 in Flagstaff, 64 in Sedona. Now, as we get into next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, temperatures around the 80s, 83 on Friday. As you can see, it is 10 degrees warmer than the average high here during this time. Now, as we get into the rest of the week, things will be cooling down. 69 on Monday, 71 on Tuesday. There is a chance of precipitation on Tuesday, and of course, cloudy skies on Sunday and Monday. From the Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Isaiah Soto.
Coming up next, the She Believes Cup is wrapping up tonight.
That's right, as the United States takes on Japan out in San Diego. And while the U.S. women look to take the tournament crown again, we also see how they are inspiring the next generation of young women soccer players.
What Cronkite News means to me is opportunity.
We do news right at Cronkite News, serving a community ethically, honestly, and truthfully.
And we can provide a necessarily different angle, different voice for those people that really need it.
The students, they have a lot of passion for journalism.
I get to do a lot of stories about the Hispanic community.
And we have access to cover all of these sorts of events and get media coverage of all these different personalities and athletes, and that's just a huge thing.
But it's also a chance for people here to be humanized. Individuals of all walks of life.
Cronkite News will help take the next generation of journalists onto their next careers.
I am old enough to remember Walter Cronkite.
We're putting a lot of pride on his name because we are practicing a lot of the things that he did.
I think he'd be smiling from ear to ear.
I.
We are Cronkite.
Hello and welcome to the Cronkite Sports Report. I'm Andres Armenta. We begin with the end of an illustrious career here in the Valley as Diana Taurasi announced she's hanging up her jersey for good. Taurasi spent her entire career with the Mercury, creating some memorable moments along the way.
When I got here in 2004, I kind of knew I was going to be here for a long time.
With the first pick of the 2004 WNBA draft, the Phoenix Mercury select Diana Taurasi from the University of Connecticut.
Taurasi leaves the game with many historical achievements. She led the Mercury to 3 WNBA titles, scored the most points in WNBA history, won 6 Olympic gold medals, and was a 3-time champion at UConn, one of the greatest competitors to play the game. The U.S. women's national soccer team has hosted the She Believes Cup in various cities since 2016, including Glendale this past Sunday. Cronkite News reporter Jonera Garcia has more on how the younger players on the roster are embodying what the tournament aims to accomplish.
The U.S. women's national team has always looked to empower women in what used to be a primarily male-dominated field, sports. The annual She Believes Cup is just one example of the team's efforts to spread awareness of women in sports as they look to inspire younger generations of girls to reach for the stars and accomplish their dreams, especially if said dream is to play professional soccer. Head coach Emma Hayes reflected on how her current roster embodies everything behind the She Believes Cup and what it aims to do.
I think they're indicative of a program that is, as I always say, building on the shoulder of huge giants.
Typically, when making a national roster, it usually involves a lot of veteran or at least experienced players on said roster. However, that's not always the case, especially for this United States team as they have a lot of young talent out on the pitch. 17-year-old Lily Johannes is creating a lot of buzz around her name as she continues her international campaign at such a young age. Johannes shared how she plans to use herself as a muse for children looking to excel in sports.
Yeah, I think just trying to be myself. I think just trying to continue growing, and hopefully I can inspire young girls or boys and anybody who looks up to me.
Another young rising star on the squad is 19-year-old Giselle Thompson. She is a believer that younger girls who want to be in her position can succeed, and had inspiring words to help young athletes believe in themselves as well.
Yeah, I think just being who they are and being confident in what you're doing, don't put any doubt in yourself and just believe.
Regardless of age, size, or background, these powerful women of the U.S. national team are firm believers in she. In Glendale, Genaro Garcia, Cronkite News.
The U.S. women's national team looks to win the She Believes Cup for the 6th year in a row as they take on Japan for the championship match tonight in San Diego. Former ASU basketball player James Harden made headlines with a 6-figure NIL donation. Harden stated that NIL is beneficial and athletes want to be compensated for their play. Here's head coach Bobby Hurley on Harden's contribution to the program.
When he gives his time the way he does, but it's certainly meaningful that he's willing to help the program in all capacities. And
Harden said that he wants to help the team and school get players, quoting, "If NIL is the problem, then I can help with that." And speaking of ASU basketball, the team has been struggling at Desert Financial Arena all season. In fact, they haven't won at home since January 4th versus Colorado. Here's head coach Bobby Hurley on the importance of closing out those home games.
And the guys hopefully, will be excited about the opportunity that we haven't been able to win and close out these games at DFA. So I think that's an important thing, that we figure out how to win a game here. The anxiety and the stress of what we've gone through has impacted everybody, and I'm not immune from that either.
The Sun Devils look to snap their home losing streak tonight versus a dangerous BYU team. ASU will play their final home game on March 8th against Texas Tech. The word dynasty gets thrown around in sports when it comes to consistent collective success. Cronkite News reporter Brady Poplar had the opportunity to catch up with perhaps the greatest dynasty in Arizona high school sports history.
Arizona wrestling powerhouse Tucson Sunnyside High School recently won its 8th straight state championship at Veterans Memorial Coliseum, adding to the school's illustrious history.
I think it means most to the senior class, and these kids, they earned it, and a lot of hard work in the room, and a community full of supporters and people who care a lot about wrestling.
4 Sunnyside wrestlers won individual state titles, including Sergio Vega and Carlos Stanton. Vega and Stanton joined 8 other Sunnyside wrestlers who have won 4 state championships.
Man, that's been our dream since we were little. We've been partners since maybe like 5 years old. So it's amazing because my dad and his dad, everyone, they've all worked for us and helped us so much in our lives so that this dream could become a reality, and we made it a reality.
Both wrestlers will be competing at Perennial Powers next year. Vega is headed to Oklahoma State, while Stanton will grapple at Iowa State. Stanton said he cherishes his time at Sunnyside.
I was just glad I was a part of it, and I hope to continue to dominate for as long as it can, but it's just great to be part of it. I can say I was part of that.
Sunnyside has now won 38 team state championships, which is second most by any team in the country. Head coach Anthony Leone knows the expectations are always high for the Blue Devils.
The hardest thing to do is wrestle with an immense amount of pressure, so part of my job is try to take the pressure off.
Sunnyside took down the field, racking up 244.5 points to secure first place, winning by a whopping 66 points ahead of the second place team. Sunnyside also took home the girls' team title, adding to the school's dominance in the sport. For Cronkite News, I'm Brady Poplar.
Sunnyside's current title run is tied for second longest in state history. They also hold the number 1 spot with 14 straight from 1998 to 2011. That's it for the Cronkite Sports Report. I'm Andres Armenta. Now back to Charlie and Jacob at the desk.
Coming up next, there was utter chaos in Nevada.
That's right. A runaway was causing trouble on a Las Vegas freeway. When we come back, find out how the Nevada Department of Transportation had beef with one cow.
Go, 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 go.
When I was younger, there were no engineers around me. So I had to become my own role model. At ASU, I wasn't just learning to be an engineer. I was actually engineering. And graduating, I already had real-world jobs lined up. Before ASU, my goal was to be a strong, confident woman. And when I left, I became a strong, confident engineer.
Innovation at the Walter Cronkite School is pushing the boundaries of traditional journalism.
Storytelling has evolved over the years. This is part of that evolution.
Students in the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Lab are using emerging technology to create scenes in augmented and virtual reality, coding playable games, and bringing the audience into the story.
They're only limited by their imagination and their willingness to learn.
Find out more at cronkite.asu.edu.
You could say that the Nevada Department of Transportation was sent on a wild goose chase.
Or rather, a wild cow chase. These cowboys captured the cow who was moving a little too close to traffic. The cow was seen roaming around the area for a few days and is now in the care of animal control.
That's it for tonight's edition of Cronkite News. I'm Charlie Vicario.
And I'm Jacob Seaver. Thank you for joining us tonight.
And to see top Arizona stories anytime, log on to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
That really was something.